Okay, Tiny T here, getting ready to replace the plumbing part where the water comes into the tub with the new stuff. I just want to give you a little bit before here what I'll be taking out. I cut those straps that had that held against the wall, so I cut those off. I get a saw in here and cut those hacksaw and then clean up the ends of those. And I'm using these shark bite connectors. I use those down at the other house, and they seem to work real good, and didn't have any trouble with them, and they seem to install real easy. So clean that off, get that cut off and clean it off, and get the old stuff out of here, and then I'll show you what the new stuff looks like when I put that on. But that's what we're starting with here, to put in the faucets for the new American Standard jet tub that we got from Home Depot. Alright, we got all the old stuff cleaned out here. You can see it over here in the corner. I just set it aside just in case I run a little short on pipe. I might use some of that in the middle. It still looks good, and I won't do that if I don't need to. I got a 10-foot section, so that should be plenty. But what I did do on these, I cut one side with a hacksaw, which left kind of a rough edge. The other side I tried to cut, but I couldn't get the hacksaw in there with everything, so I tried a Sawzall, but didn't have much luck with it either. Trying to cut, everything was moving, so I took the board out that was back behind there, and then I used this little pipe cutter tool from Rigid that they make, and got this probably at Home Depot or Lowe's, one or the other, but it cut off, make a nice clean cut. And I use this other deal here that you use for the pipe to clean it and get it nice and smooth. You want to have that nice and smooth and clean of all debris before you put those shark bite connectors on. I'll show you what I'm using a little bit different here for the coupling that goes onto that pipe that I have. I'm using a shutoff valve. These are a shark bite connector. I'm putting a hole in the wall there and putting an access panel over the side, because I've always had, at some point had a leak or something, or had to get into those, and then I end up cutting a hole later. As long as I have access to the other side there, I'm going to cut a nice clean hole that I can fit a half-inch piece of plywood or something in there, paint up, look nice, and have an access panel from the side of the wall that goes over there. So, but I put these in that way whenever I work on plumbing, if I ever do need to change that out, I got a place I can shut the water off. You have these shutoffs under sinks, you have them under the toilets, but they don't usually put them in the wall where the shower or the tub are. So I'm going to put some shutoffs in the wall there and have them so I can face them towards the access panel. So I can get in there and shut off the water, or something would happen to leak up above or something like that, I have the shutoff coming out of the floor there for it. If it's below that, then I'll have to shut off water to the outside, of course, but hopefully that'll save some trouble later on. If I need to shut it off in a hurry, I have a shutoff valve for that. If I need to change something out, I can get in through that access panel and shut that off. Okay, I got the shutoff valves installed on there, and I'm going to go turn the water on and test them. That way at this point I won't have any leaks. I'll go ahead and turn it back off if I make sure these don't leak. I just want to make sure I have a safety here, that once I get everything hooked up, if I have a leak, I can shut them off and stop the water at this point if something leaks farther up. As you can tell, I'm not a plumber. I'm just home do-it-yourselfer, so I probably do things extra safe. They have other connectors a lot cheaper than these, but I want the safety to shut things off just in case something leaks later on and I ain't ready for it. And so hopefully these don't leak here. And I got the water on here to the faucet to kind of ease the pressure on it until I can shut those off and make sure there's no leaks on it. And so that'll be my next test. Okay, I'm looking at it and a little bit out of breath. I ran back just in case something was spewing water. Never know with plumbing, so I don't see any leaks on it there. I do have the tap running, which will leave some of the pressure, so I'm going to go ahead and start shutting that off. And hopefully I don't have to run back out and turn the water back off. Just a little hint, I turned on a spigot outside, a tap that's lower on the house than what the pipes are in here, and I left that open while I had the water off. And the reason I do that is sometimes, even though you shut this off the street, there may be a little water seep through, just enough pressure where a little water is still coming through there, not much, but just a little bit, which can tend to put water in the pipes that you're working on. These pipes were up a little bit higher than what that tap is outside, so I left that open. When I went out to shut that off before I turned the water back on, I had a little cap under there for the winter that covers it. It had filled up with water, so there was water seeping out of that. I had to spigot it open, so it had stopped when I was out there. I drained the water out, but there's enough water on that it's still enough pressure coming in from the street that there's still water coming in there. So I'm glad I did that. Otherwise, I might have had water bubbling up out of these pipes, and not a big mess in here on the tile, but just something you don't need to work with. And just a little tip: if you have an outside spigot or something that's lower than what you're working on, you can do that. Sometimes I'll flush the toilet. If it's lower than if I'm working on a sink or something, I'll flush the toilet. That way the toilet will be filling up, with any of that water that's leaking. So anytime you find something that's a little bit lower to turn on, leave open while you got the water shut off, that if there is any water coming in still from the street, it'll drain out of there. Don't forget to turn it off, though. I made sure I went out and turned that off and covered it back up for the winter before I went out and turned the water on. So this looks like it's holding. I'm going to go back out and turn that off out there in case I happen to bump a handle or something. I don't want water spewing out of that. So don't need to turn it on outside again, I don't think. So I'll build up the rest of this, but I'm going to get the water turned off out there while I'm working and get started on building up for the new faucets and stuff for the tub here. Okay, Tiny T here again. I wanted to show you on the tub here, installation of the Whirlpool tub. I got some stuff sitting in there right now. I got the tub in place, put about a 3-inch base of mortar under it, and hopefully that's enough. I do have some work to do before I actually get everything hooked up and ready. As you can see here, the copper pipes and everything, that went pretty slick. They did have to go get some pieces and stuff, but using those shark bite connectors went real quick. So use those everywhere I could down there. Well, one thing I showed you earlier, those shutoff valves. Got those, and I'm going to put an access panel in here, and those have helped quite a bit. I'd have been without water here for quite a while if I didn't have those shutoffs. So I'm really happy I put those in because I don't have the tub drain in yet. One of the pieces down there, I had to cut that off because they'd tarred that in down there. Don't know if you can see that very good, but that down there I glued on. It's lower about 2-3 inches from what it was before, just enough that I can't quite bring the drain up to the bottom of the tub here to tighten it on there. So I'm going to have to get a new piece for that before I can put the drain in. But otherwise, everything else went real well. So one thing I will say, though, is anytime you're putting in a tub in where you already had construction and it was finished off and you're remodeling, that's harder than when you have just the empty house. I've done both now, and I can tell you it's a lot harder to get these in here. I really struggled trying to get that in without taking this trim board off for the door here, but I ended up having to take that off completely, moving this out this way after I pulled it out this way, and then moved it out so I could slide that tub in. There's not a lot of room there, and them tubs are heavy, and I was trying to hold it up on edge and get it in there, and just wasn't having much luck, and just putting a lot of strain on the back doing that and working by yourself. Well, my wife is helping a little bit with that, but it's only so much you can do on some of that, so it just didn't work out real well. Put some 1x4 stringers around there that the edge sits on, but that's not to support the tub. You put the mortar down underneath, and that's what supports. So underneath the bottom of the tub down there, all the way across the bottom, all across, took about 3 bags of mortar, and I built that up about 3 inches and letting that set now. So it hasn't hardened yet. It'll probably take a couple days before that sets real hard, so gotta be careful not to put a lot of weight. I did step in there to make sure it was set down and everything was set in there so it's not resting on the stringers, but actually resting on that mortar bed. Now I may, once I get done here, I'll have to fill in around the bottom of that with something. So I don't know if I use plaster or maybe just mix up a little bit more mortar. I got another bag out there, so I may mix that up and try and fit some more in underneath on this end, as far as being a little bit careful with it under the tub that I didn't fill up that hole or that drain with any mortar. So anyway, that's where I'm at right now.